Okay, so this is the second part of the class where we're doing Candide. Hopefully, we'll start and finish today so that we can have an extra class for the revision. Remember that your MT exam is next week, inshallah. So it's Candide that we're doing. And when I say Candide, does it ring any bells? Do we know what Candide is and who Candide is and who the author is and stuff like that? Any idea when I say Candide? Rahaf, can you come to the mic or perhaps if you have something, yeah, come to the mic if you can.
I only remember the author called Voltaire, and it's
Yeah.
about optimism,
Mhm.
and social commentary, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is all about all of that. It's all of the above. Thank you so much. Yes. So Candide is a social commentary novella, if you like, and it is written by Voltaire, who happens to be a French philosopher from the 18th century, as we're going to see. So it has talk about optimism, but obviously it doesn't promote optimism. Actually, it's the opposite. It promotes skepticism and it poses a threat and a challenge to the dominating philosophies of the time, and at the core of which there was optimism. Yeah. So Candide is all about that, as we're going to see. So where are we now? We are in the 18th century. So as you can see, the terrain is very vast. We started off with the medieval period. It is true that we don't have a representative work, but we spoke about, we couldn't have afforded not to talk about the medieval times. And then we went on and addressed the Renaissance period, talking about perhaps late 13th century until the early 18th century. This is perhaps the Renaissance, where we have all types of revolutions, intellectual revolutions, I mean, political revolutions, if you like, military revolutions, where life um, is now changing in very uh, um, dramatic ways, changing that are so big, scientific discoveries, geographical explorations, um, even in the arts, where especially if we talk about drama. So it's not the religious kinds of plays that we're used to in the medieval times. No, it's more nuanced. It's more about governance, about social classes and established orders. And so where are we now? We are in the 18th century, and the 18th century is the age of reason, enlightenment, where obviously the focus is whatever is human, whatever addresses human beings, their concerns, their issues and problems, and of course, in relation to uh, what binds them to the universe, God, religion, secular philosophies, science. So we'll have all those kinds of entanglements uh, um, expressed and communicated in Candide. So Candide is a representation of the 18th century, the age of reason. Reason means that we're relying very heavily on the fruits of thinking. So it's thinking that we're having, it's using our minds that we're having this time around. Um, so it's Candide. It's it was originally written in French, and the text that we're dealing with is a translated piece of work. Again, translation and what comes out of it in terms of debates and controversies are also there, but obviously we're not going to talk about that. The focus is on the philosophies of the time, the focus on how they are reflected in the novella, and how they are and whether they are being promoted or challenged. This is what the whole lesson is about. So let me share my slides, and we are on our way. So again, like I said, that this is Candide, or optimism. So Candide is the title, the main title, and the subtitle is optimism, and it can tell you what we are in for. And of course, it is written, or it was written by Voltaire, the very famous French philosopher. Um, uh, so when we talk about Candide, we need to also unpack the word Candide if it has meanings. Normally, uh, when you have titles, they are not chosen randomly. They have a meaning inherent to them that can tell you a great deal about what is ahead. So the title also, the subtitle is very revealing and very suggestive. It's optimism. So whether optimism here means that the novella is going to promote optimism or perhaps challenge it, would or it remains to be seen. So again, we're talking about the 18th century and what happens or what happened in the 18th century. And obviously, we're talking about the intellectual part of things, how things happened and how they were accounted for, the good and the bad. Um, so it was first published in 1759, which makes it an 18th century piece of work. And it was published in three different editions, and it was distributed in three different places. And again, you would ask why in three different places at the same time. And again, it's because the novel or the novella was full of controversial ideas. So the author, who didn't even show his name, uh, 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 opted to kind of sell it in three different places and three different editions, so that if it gets confiscated and banned in one place, it doesn't get confiscated or banned in another. Um, and this is exactly what happened. It got seized in Geneva, and it was suppressed. And um, again, the title page bore the description from the German of Dr. Ralph. He's saying, or he's claiming that he has translated it from a work by a German author by the name of Dr. Ralph. This is again to avoid being harassed by the authorities, because obviously he is talking about issues that he shouldn't talk about. He's challenging religion, challenging orthodoxies, and obviously that would uh, put him under a lot of scrutiny by the government and its authorities. Again, it was only in 1768 that he acknowledged the fact that he was the author. I'm talking, of course, about uh, uh, Voltaire. Again, before we start engaging with the text, I would like us to all agree on a number of concepts that we're going to see repeated in the novella. Um, so we'll talk about evidence. Of course, you know what evidence is when uh, uh, we talk about evidence, we talk about proof. You say, for example, that somebody did something to you. So you have to prove it. You have to provide evidence. You have to provide proof. So if I say that it rained yesterday in my area, I have to give perhaps pictures of uh, rains at the time. I have to prove to people that it rained. And normally, when we talk about proofs, we talk about proofs that are rational. And rational, it means it addresses our mind. It addresses, it's something that we can uh, uh, kind of accept with our mind, something rational. Um, and evidence can also be empirical. Empirical means that you can touch, that you can feel and see. So when we talk about uh, issues and when we talk about ideologies, and somebody is trying to tell you that something exists, let's talk about religious concepts. So some people are skeptical and ask about proof and evidence. Okay, and this proof and evidence for them should be empirical. Empirical means تجريبي, something that you can touch and feel, حاجة مادية. And they also ask that this piece of evidence should be rational. Rational means logical, منطقي. It can address my mind can accept it. Um, Again, we're going to talk about God. Of course, you know what God is. God and the other word that people use, they talk about deity. God is only one, but deities are many. When we talk about Greek mythology, you have so many deities, Aliha, but there is only one God with capital G, of course. Again, there is going to talk about God as benevolent, as all powerful, and as all knowing. This is what we believe in, of course, as Muslims, that God is benevolent. Benevolent is means from benevolence. Benevolence means God is good. God is doing what is in the best interest of people and humanity. All powerful, of course. God is so powerful, uh, um, and all knowing. Of course, God has knowledge and has foreknowledge and everything. So benevolent from benevolence, ihsan, um, and all powerful means from omnipotence. Omnipotence means all powerful, and all knowing means omniscience. And there is also going to be talk about evil in the world. And the question would be, first of all, what kind of evil do we have? We have what we call natural evil and we have moral evil. What do we mean by natural evil? If you have natural disasters like earthquakes, volcanoes, storms, these are all called natural evil. They come from nature. We don't have obviously any control over. We're not the one or the ones who caused them. Okay, these are natural evils, and we also have moral evil. Moral evil is the evil that beings cause. So, killing is moral evil. Waging wars against each other is moral evil. What else? Moral evil can be as small as backbiting, speaking ill about other people, and it can be as big as launching or starting a nuclear war, for example. So this is called moral evil and caused by human beings. So we'll talk about natural evil and moral evil, and we're going to talk about the bigger question, which is how come we have evil in the world? How come we have pain in the world? How come people die? So that the big picture would be in the presence and on the watch of a benevolent, all-powerful, all-knowing God and deity. How come we have evil? See, so this is the question that the novella is addressing all the time. It's about this uh, uh, discrepancy or this kind of dilemma. How come God is benevolent and all powerful and all knowing, and there is evil? According to this logic, if God is and He wants what is best for human beings, that He should prevent evil. If God is all powerful, it means that He can prevent evil. How come He does not? If He is all knowing, it means that He knows that evil is coming before it happens. So how come He doesn't prevent? So these are the questions that the novella is grappling with. You're going to see that the novel, this novella, it takes on or takes the shape and the form of a journey. You have the main characters and the other characters moving from one country to another. And this is a kind of uh, novel that was obviously widespread during the time in the 18th century and even prior. The idea of journeys, the idea of having the main character moving from one place to another. And this is a typical pattern that we see in all literature. Again, for different reasons. Sometimes the main character moves from one country to another looking for adventure, perhaps to toughen up and become different and initiate himself so that when he comes back, he's a totally different person. He is more knowledgeable. He is tougher than ever. He is man enough. Sometimes he or she goes on a journey in order to discover the world and makes those comparisons between where he was and where he is headed to. Sometimes it's a philosophical journey where you learn a great deal about the world and you ask all types of questions. Sometimes you're looking for uh, uh, you know, um, a world that is free uh, of evil, a world that is full of generosity and plenty and justice and fairness. Um, so we're talking about this novella that has at its core the element of journey. And again, this is all against the backdrop of two major upheavals or revolutions in European history in the 17th and the 18th century. We're talking about the Glorious Revolution in the 17th century, 1688, and the French Revolution in 1789. So obviously, the novella is straddling those two momentous events in the history of Europe. Again, why we're having this idea or pattern of a journey because during the time the Europeans started to move beyond their borders and they started to have this expansion moving to Africa, to India, and to other parts of the globe. Um, Again, moving to other parts of the world led to the proliferation and the spread of writing on journeys and travel. Again, of course, when you go to other places and you meet new people, different habits, you have this inclination to write about them and to write about the journey. Um, Obviously, when we talk about travel writing, whether it's factual or fictional, we are going to go even uh, prior to the 18th century. Um, so these are some of the works that perhaps paved the way for Candide as a novella on and about a journey. Of course, when we go to ancient history, we have Herodotus, who is a Greek historian of the 5th century, and he had those journeys and recorded them in his histories, and he was particularly interested in relating the morals and religions of the countries he passed by. And we also have Pausanias, who happened to be a philosopher from the 2nd century CE. He went through Greece and he describes the belief systems and cults of communities, of the communities he encountered. And then we have Thomas More with his famous Utopia in 1516, where he was focusing on creating a utopian society that is free from bias, society where women are given equal rights, access to education, and so he was talking about uh, um, a utopia. This is what we now call, when we talk about a green world, a world where justice prevails, where everybody is treated equally. So again, when we talk about travel writing, we're talking about a genre that is primarily descriptive and narrative. And in this genre, a story is told, whether this story is real or imagined, and it talks about a group of people or a person voyaging from one place to another. Again, for all types of reasons and purposes, sometimes, uh, uh, um, and of course, these works are never neutral. There is always this comparison between the worlds they and those writers travel to their own world. Sometimes the writer or the writers make negative and even racist judgments on the places that they visit, and some other times they recognize, through the comparison, they recognize flaws in their own society, and sometimes that would lead them to reflect upon the universality of the human condition. These are some of the aims and the purposes and reflections. Again, we spoke about Herodotus being the first to perhaps record his travelings. So if we talk about, um, seeking a perfect world, which we otherwise refer to as utopia, we also talk about dysutopias. Dysutopias are in the literature are countries and places imagined or real, where life is a hell, a real hell, where you have dictatorships, where you have authoritarian regimes, where you have, people are imprisoned for no obvious reasons. There is corruption. There is all those kinds of corrupt practices by autocratic rulers. So these are this utopia, what we call these utopias. Again, utopia is the complete opposite. The question remains whether, Candide, when we read it, I would like you to ask this question whether Candide is a utopia promoting uh, uh, um, places where there is justice and equal opportunity, or a dystopia where there is slavery, there is wars, there is dictatorships. We're going to see, and I would like you to judge for yourself whether what we are in for is a utopia or a dystopia. Again, um, here are examples of literature that was about journeys to other countries, looking at how they behave, their habits, agreeing or disagreeing with those habits. Of course, we are all familiar with Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift, where you have Lemuel Gulliver, who is cast away on a succession of imaginary islands, in each of which facets of human stupidity or greed are exaggerated. So obviously, we're talking about this utopian uh, um, landscapes here. Um, so obviously, it was anti-utopian, or in our modern terms, we use the word dystopia. So Voltaire, without spoiling it, is writing Swiftian satiric dystopia. So again, Swift wrote first, and then came Voltaire, and the likelihood that Voltaire got influenced by Swift is very high. And this is all about the amount of influence that contemporary writers had on Voltaire. We spoke about Swift, Johnson Swift. Now we're talking about Samuel Johnson, who also wrote The History of Rasselas, Prince of Abyssinia. Abyssinia is modern day Ethiopia. And it is also about a prince who also moves from one country to another looking for a perfect place. Again, it's about justice and fairness and everything in between. Um, again, people are polarized over Candide as a genre, what kind of genre it is. If you say that it is a roman means novel in the French sense. We say we're going to find that Candide does not follow the strict conventions and the generic requirements of a novel. It can also be a philosophical tale where it is more or less like a fable or a parable where you have moral lessons. Its meanings lie close to the surface. The events are designed to make a point in the ongoing arguments. Yeah, it can be described as a tale, and what kind of tale it is. It is a philosophical tale because it addresses profound issues. We're talking about pain. Why do we have pain in the world? Talks about God and how come we have pain and suffering and disease in a world controlled and governed by a benevolent, all knowing, all seeing, all powerful God. Some people refer to to Candide or to this novella as a satire. Satire is this kind of writing that ridicules or mocks the feelings of individuals and institutions and whole societies. Yeah, it does. It does just that. Is it a satire? Yeah, it can be. But what kind of satire is it? Does he satire or satirize or ridicules these institutions and societies in a direct way? No, he doesn't. He doesn't believe in direct commentary. That's why we call it an indirect satire. Um, Voltaire allows the readers to draw their own conclusions without diminishing the intensity of the ridicule and scorn he directs at the hypocrisies and inequalities of his day. So the genre of Candide again, um, we said that if it's a novel, it doesn't satisfy the requirements of a novel. Um, it's more or less like a novella in terms of how big it is. It is a short novel. Again, we said that it can be a parable or a tale where you have a moral lesson. The writer is trying to make a point, which he uh, is. So it's a philosophical tale where the writer is making statements or a statement. Again, we said that it can be a satire, which is normally used as a weapon to attack society, to make social commentaries on society, its failings, its ills and evils and everything. Again, it's an indirect satire because being direct is not always good. Uh, 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 Literature is about nuance, is about, uh, um, you know, it's about suggestion rather than, preaching and giving sermons. Again, when you look at the novel or the novella, rather, it's a journey, like we said, where the main actors and characters are people moving from theory to practice, moving from theory to fact. The theory is something, and the practices on the ground are something else. You can talk about virtues all you like, but when it comes to the real test would be whether you are exercising and practicing those virtues uh, or not. You can talk about generosity and kindness all you like, but are you in real life generous and kind? This is the real question. This is what the whole journey is about discovering whether people live up to what they say they are or not. Again, you say that you are religious, you are God fearing, but are you in reality and in actual fact God fearing? Do you practice that on the ground? This is what Voltaire is trying to prove. He is trying to establish the fact that no, this is not true. There is a wide gap between theory and fact. Again, during the time in the 18th century, there were widespread philosophies, and these philosophies are what Voltaire is taking on. One of them was the fact that that we live in the best of all possible worlds. The fact that the world in its current or present form is the best in terms of dealings, in terms of progress. And you have people in the novella who are promoting those kinds of philosophies and ideologies. And on top of them would be Pangloss, who happens to be the main kind of promoter of the idea that we live in the best of all possible world, that we should be happy, optimistic. Again, this is said against the backdrop of a time in which there was earthquakes, devastating as they are. There were, wars of religion. There were also, wars of hegemony and everything. Again, there were philosophies that would promote this idea. One of the philosophers of the time was a German philosopher by the name of Gottfried Leibniz. And there was this very famous English poet, Alexander Pope. And those guys were promoting the idea that we live in the best of all possible worlds, and that if there are shortcomings and limitations in the world, it's because we don't understand, because of our limited capacity as limited human beings. So this is the cover page of the novella in which it is written Candide, or optimism, and it says very clearly that it is translated from the German of Dr. Ralph. Is it really a translation from the German? Of course not. Again, I told you that Voltaire is using this in order to avoid being kind of asked why he wrote what he wrote. Again, saying that it is taken or translated from the German of Dr. Ralph is an invention, and again, it is meant to kind of hide the identity of Voltaire, and in order not to land him in trouble. So the idea of a German original and the existence of a Dr. Ralph are all inventions and are part of the whole fabric of this fiction. So this is how the novella starts. It starts with once upon a time. Of course, we're familiar with this start. It suggests the beginning of a fairy tale and the combination of absurd names and the ironic tone. All of this would establish uh, immediately a distinctive narrative. So again, because it's like he said, it's a translation, we see that we're having a naive kind of Dr. Ralph, who happens to be a naive kind of narrator. And then over time, we kind of confuse him with the Candide, I mean, character, who happens to be the legitimate son of the Baron's sister and a kindly and honest gentleman of the neighborhood. We're going to see that Candide um, is also a little bit credulous, gullible. He believes whatever other people tell him without scrutiny or checking. So from the outset or the beginning, the reader is thus given very clear hints not to take at face value the narrator's version of events and his judgments of individuals, peoples, and places because they will prove wrong. Again, there is going to be a great deal of irony, literary irony, uh, and irony is about this mismatch between what a character says and what we see in the real world. So here irony is extended and extensive because it covers the whole novella. So it's the use of a naive or deluded hero or unreliable narrator whose view of the world differs widely from the true circumstances recognized by the author or reader. This is exactly what is happening. We see Candide and Pangloss giving us a very rosy idea of the world, but we see practices on the ground that would belie all what they are saying, that would challenge their views of the world. So that irony would bring about humor, and humor in Candide is derived from the ironic distance between the narrator's words and Voltaire's satiric attack on society. Again, at one point we spoke about the philosophies, the dominant philosophies of the time, and one of them would be this climate of optimism that was sweeping Europe. And optimism is this concept of believing that we live in the best of all possible worlds. Um, and obviously, whatever we see in Voltaire and his work and views is the total opposite. Um, so obviously, when you look at the title Candide, it doesn't tell you much about what the novel or the novella may be about. But when you look at the subtitle, which is optimism, it can give you hints at what the author has in mind. Again, a main character is Pangolus, who is Candide's tutor and who is the inexhaustible spokesman on behalf of optimism. Again, he is presented in a very exaggerated comic way. Again, perhaps to in trying to, in an indirect way, to challenge and ridicule the optimism of the time. Again, there is this idea that, of course, the rich will believe that the world is great and that we live in the best of all possible worlds. Of course, the healthy will believe that we live in the best of all possible worlds. Of course, masters will believe that we live in the best of all possible worlds. So it has logic to it, but obviously, when you talk about the rich, we're talking about a small minority. When you talk about uh, um, masters, obviously, we're talking about a small minority. So again, we're talking about the philosophy of the time, and the philosophy of the time was rooted on optimism. And who promoted this kind of philosophy? The first one is Anthony Ashley Cooper, or Shaftesbury, Lord Shaftesbury, or Earl of Shaftesbury, a very famous English philosopher who believed in the benevolence of the universe. He didn't mind self-interest, but he says that people are good by nature, that human beings are good by nature. And then we also have Alexander Pope, who wrote poems, and one of them is Essay on Man, in which he believes that we live again in the best of all possible worlds, and the fact that if there is partial evil, people need to look at the big picture, and uh, uh, partial evil is part of a wider plan that only God sees. Um, so this is Alexander Pope and his essay on man. So in one of his arguments, he says that no matter how imperfect, complex, inscrutable, and disturbing the universe appears to be, it functions in a rational fashion according to the natural laws. According to him, the universe as a whole is a perfect work of God. And he addresses human beings, saying that, yeah, if there is imperfection and evil, this is because we cannot see the bigger picture, and it is because we have a limited mindset, and we have a limited intellectual capacity. He says men should rely on hope, which then leads to faith. According to him, it is man's duty to strive to be good regardless of other situations. And then we have Leibniz, the German philosopher, who is a rational philosopher, rational in the sense that he says, let's start an argument. And from uh, the argument, from the premises, we're going to come up with a conclusion using the mind. Uh, um, he says the creator, since the creator, in which he means God, since the creator was both omniscient and omnipotent, he says that we are all agreed that God is omniscient, knows everything, and omnipotent, has unlimited power. Uh, uh, and since we believe that God is benevolent and He wants us all to be happy, then the world He has made was one that secured the most contentedness. He's trying to say that we are believers. We believe that God is omnipotent, is all powerful and all seeing, and He cannot have done something bad to human being. He believes that, yeah, that there can be bad things happening in the world, uh, uh, and some people are suffering, and everything, but this is part of a grand universal plan. Again, why can't we see that? Because this is part of a serene overview that only God can see. Um, So this all serves a greater good that only God can know about. Again, we are limited in capacity, mental and physical. That's why we cannot grasp the wisdom of God when we see bad things happening in the world. So, according to him, since God is perfect by definition, it follows that he can do no harm and no wrong. Um, Again, this is all well and good, but uh, people cannot prevent themselves from asking about the benevolence and the foreknowledge uh, of God when they see the Lisbon earthquake uh, with its tsunami uh, in 1755, which was a natural disaster that rocked the belief of optimism and left thousands of people dead. Again, people cannot prevent themselves from asking about why there is evil. Obviously, this time around, it's moral evil when they saw, I mean, countries butchering each other in the Seven Years' War between 1756 and 1763. Um, so obviously, these are all events that are conflicting with the idea that the world is the best, that we live in a world governed by a benevolent, all-knowing, and all-powerful God. So um, there was again this idea that everything is um good and for the good of people. And of course, like we said, you have Alexander Pope and Leibniz promoting this idea that we live in a perfect world. So there is this insistence that in the ultimate scheme of things, there exists a sufficient reason for each and every event, fully able to account for even its unfortunate seeming aspects. And there is this scientific view that all happenings are part of an uh, inexorable web of cause and effect, which nothing can divert. And also the religious doctrine that when everything else fails, when you cannot convince me through science, through argument, through the philosophy of the mind, if you cannot, I'm going to tell you that it's all because of you. You are responsible. Religiously, you are responsible because you are the inheritor of the original sin. Don't forget that you are a damned species. Don't forget your ancestors, Adam and Eve, and what they did in disobeying God, and how they were thrown out of paradise. So again, evil can be because of the sin that your forefathers committed. See? So we spoke enough about Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz and his philosophy, and then the fact that he does not deny that nasty things happened in the world and there is suffering, but he is stressing the fact that we are limited in our knowledge, and what we see is only part of the grand universal plan that only God knows about, because he is omniscient and he's omnipotent. Again, one of the issues that the novella grapples with, because of all of that, is the idea of pain and evil, and why we have pain and evil in the world. Um, so, rationally, according to Leibniz, the philosopher, pain and evil exist because they are partial evil and they are part of a larger plan that only God knows about. Empirically, I see evil in the world. I can feel it. I die. I get sick. So you don't convince me. So you would have this clash between whatever is rational, addressing only my mind, and whatever is empirical, things that I can touch and feel. So you would have this clash between the two, of course. So where does Voltaire stand on that? Voltaire is an empirical philosopher. Empirical means that he believes only in the things that he sees and feels in the world. And what does he see and feel in the world? He sees violence, he sees evil, he sees death and suffering. Okay, so he says, yeah, how do you account for the problem of evil, the problem of pain? And obviously, they would normally say, yeah, it is true that there is evil, it is true that there is pain, but again, it's because we are limited in knowledge. We are not, or we don't possess the knowledge and the wisdom that God has. Obviously, not very convincing. So, like I said, Leibniz is a rationalist philosopher, and his approach is characterized by arguing forward from certain assumptions. So, since God is perfect by definition, it follows that he can do no wrong. Um, Voltaire, like I said, is an empiricist, and his approach is empirical. He used his experience of the world around him to draw certain conclusions about it. Again, what happened in the world during the time shook people's confidence and their confidence and their beliefs. And like we said, we spoke about the 1755 uh, fissure that happened in Lisbon, uh, um, and of course, what happened to the shoreline of the Portuguese capital, Lisbon, uh, um, where buildings tottered and fell. And ironically, it was All Saints' Day. It was a religious occasion, and churches were full of people attending Mass. So again, the question remains, how could a benevolent and all-seeing deity or God possibly have ordained this? This is the question that people like Voltaire, the empiricists, ask. The shock of the Lisbon earthquake was compounded by the Seven Years' War, which was triggered when Frederick of Prussia invaded Saxony or northern Germany. Again, because it's a war, it spread across the rest of Europe. It extended all the way to North America and South Asia, where France and Britain were soon at loggerheads over their colonial possessions. And then we have Alexander Pope with his essay on man. Again, he celebrates the symmetry, the harmony that he sees in the world, ignoring, of course, the fact that there is evil, and he says all discord if there is evil and bad things, harmony. It's a harmony, but we don't understand it. If there is partial evil, we need to remember this is part of universal good, and he believes that we are proud human beings, and it's only that we are limited, and we cannot see um, the big or the bigger picture. And like I said, if when they fail to convince you, they would refer to the fact that it's all because of the sense of human beings, and they always refer to the original sin. Um, I don't know. I think we need to stop here and continue. Not tomorrow. Tomorrow is Tuesday. Do you have? Can we meet on Wednesday to finish everything? No. Would Wednesday be fine at 2 p.m.? What do you think of 2 p.m. Wednesday? wait يا نور. would يوم الأربعاء يا جماعة الساعة 2 الظهر مناسب؟ نخلص فولتير.
Yes.
Okay, طيب. Can we tell our other colleagues? I'll send an email too. So I'll meet you inshallah on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. So what is it that we're going to do? We're going to finish off Candide, and the rest of the time we're going to have a general revision. Okay?
Same time, doctor?
What?
It's
Yeah,
the same
I'm
time
saying
and same link?
it's going to be the same link, but how about making it 2 o'clock? Would 2 o'clock be convenient? الساعة 2 يبقى مناسب?
Yes, it's fine with me, sir.
Is it fine with everyone؟
Yes, certainly.
طيب
Yes,
ممتاز.
certainly.
خلاص. Let me set the agenda for next time. I said we're going to finish off Candide. It's going to take perhaps less than an hour. And then the second hour is going to be general revision for the MTA in midterm. Right. Until then, I wish you all the best, يا جماعة. السلام عليكم.